You've probably heard about the scandal that surrounded Brad Pitt at the very beginning of his career. He allegedly got into a difficult situation with an acting student. Rumors flew around Hollywood, and many almost wrote him off. The tabloids whispered, agents had a hard time working with him, and Brad himself remained under the radar, even before his real star role had arrived. But let's start from the beginning. Imagine a small town in Missouri. The roar of a factory in the morning, the smell of gasoline and paint, old houses where the windows are flooded with sunlight, but inside it is always a little cool. This is where Brad grew up. His life was simple, everyday: school, part-time jobs, parents who diligently tried to give him everything he needed. But inside him, a dream was already burning that did not fit into the framework of a small town. He saw himself on big screens, under bright spotlights, where the world stops just to look at you. As a boy, he could sit for hours in a dark room, watching old films and trying to repeat the actors' movements, their looks, their emotions. Each scene was a small world for him, in which he was the hero. Sometimes he would just walk down the street and smell the paint and engine oil, and imagine that one day the smell of red carpets would replace this one, and the sound of the factory's roar would be replaced by the applause of the crowd. His parents didn't always understand these fantasies. They saw a boy dreaming of Hollywood, while there were real problems around him: studies, work, responsibilities. Classmates laughed. "You're crazy, Brad. Hollywood is far away, and you can't even act properly in a school play." But for him, every such ridicule was just a challenge. One evening, when he was alone at home, he heard an old movie on an old TV. The heroes fought for their dream, fell, rose, overcoming fear. And at that moment, Brad decided, I will follow my dream, even if the path is difficult. This decision was quiet, almost imperceptible to the world, but later it became the driving force of his whole life. And then his contrasting path began, from a small room with the smell of paint and dust to large halls, where his name would be heard on red carpets and on posters of world film studios. A little boy with big dreams had just taken his first step, not even knowing that rejections, crises, and new scandals awaited him ahead that would test his strength. After Brad took his first step into the big world of Hollywood, reality immediately slapped him. Los Angeles does not forgive the weak. Here the smell of hot asphalt mixed with the aroma of coffee shops, where young actors sat with portfolios in their hands, each dreaming of a role that would change their lives. Brad lived in a cheap apartment with cracked walls, where even the bed creaked so that it seemed to say, "You are not ready yet." His phone rarely rang. Casting directors mostly turned him down, sometimes without any explanation. "You're not the right fit," he heard over and over again. Sometimes the feeling of defeat was so strong that it seemed like the whole world was against him. But in addition to the usual difficulties, a scandal loomed on the horizon that could ruin everything. Gossip about an alleged misunderstanding with an acting student spread around town, and Hollywood began to whisper. Brad stopped taking some directors for auditions. Agents had a hard time protecting him, and the paparazzi would not let him rest. This was the moment when anyone else could have given up. But Brad understood one thing. If rejections and rumors determine your fate, you've lost before you even started. In response, he started working even harder. Every night, after grueling part-time jobs at a cafe and delivery, he would videotape himself, practicing his acting scenes, rehearsing dialogue, and practicing his facial expressions and voice. Every rejection became fuel, not a burden. And then came the first turning point. A casting for a film that promised nothing special became a chance to prove himself. Brad entered the room, his hands shaking, but his heart beating as if he already knew this moment would change his life. His emotions, naturalness, and inner strength made the director say, "You fit the bill." It was a small victory that broke the first wall of failure. And while many still remembered the scandal and rejection, Brad learned that true strength lies not in avoiding problems, but in learning from them and turning every crisis into an opportunity. It was a lesson he would carry throughout his career. Rejection is not a defeat, but the beginning of a journey to something greater. After his first successes, Brad Pitt felt that his career was no longer about experiments, but about choosing his own path. Hollywood offered him big roles, but not all of them matched his vision. And then came the moment when he realized, to become a real actor, you need not only to act, but also to lead, make difficult decisions, and take risks. Imagine a studio room. A director who has already proven himself approaches and says that Brad must play by his rules, repeat the patterns, adapt to commercial success. Brad felt an inner tension. It was a moment of choice. Agree and gain popularity, or take a risk and find his own path. He chose the latter. The decision turned out to be risky. Some producers discussed him behind his back, saying he was intransigent and difficult to work with. The tabloids rejoiced at every hint of conflict. Brad found himself under pressure, but for the first time he felt the power of his own voice. He learned to set conditions. I play what feels real to me, otherwise I don't. It was the first lesson in leadership. Sometimes you have to stand your ground, even if the whole world doubts it. At the same time, he worked on changing his image. A new style, a new approach to roles, the courage to try genres that he had previously avoided. All this created his new image. People began to see not just an actor, but an artist who was ready to take risks, test himself, push himself to the limit. But the transformation also included scandalous moments. During the filming of one of the films, an open argument with the director took place. Brad wanted to add emotional depth to the character. The director insisted on a standard scheme. The cameras recorded his emotional protest, and the press instantly hyped it as a conflict on the set. For many, this could have been a defeat, but for Brad it became a symbol. Being yourself is more important than temporary popularity. At the same time, this transformation brought rewards. He began to receive roles where he could show the full depth of his talent. Every scene was a challenge, every shot an opportunity to prove that he was not just an actor, but the creator of his own path. He learned to combine talent with strategy, emotions with market understanding, personal freedom with teamwork. It was a period of growth that would forever change his career. The little boy who once dreamed in a dark room became a man who could make difficult decisions, take responsibility, and lead. He learned to turn crises into opportunities, scandals into lessons, and doubts into energy for new achievements. And this lesson is the most important in his life. True success comes not to those who blindly follow popularity, but to those who boldly change themselves and the world around them. And now the moment has come when a little boy from Missouri, who once spent hours watching old movies in a dark room, became part of big Hollywood. His name began to be whispered on red carpets. His photos appeared on the covers of glossy magazines, and his talent was noticed not only by critics, but also by a global audience. The first big breakthrough came with the film that took him to a new level. Imagine the scene: the flashing of cameras, the smell of expensive perfume, the whispers of journalists turning into a standing ovation as he walks onto the red carpet. Your heart beats wildly, because this is not just a premiere. It is a moment that shows that all the years of struggle, all the nights of rejection and doubt were not in vain. Later came nominations for prestigious awards, the first awards that symbolized the recognition of his talent. His acting amazed the audience and critics, and scenes that had previously seemed impossible were now his daily reality. Each role gave him new depth, a new emotion that he could convey to the viewer. But with fame came difficulties. Tabloid publications were full of scandals, his first major divorces and romantic intrigues, rumors about his personal life, and even criticism of his choice of roles. Hollywood watched closely, and the public discussed his every move. Some called him an icon of style and talent. Others, a scandalous personality who knew no bounds. Brad realized that in such a world the main thing is to remain himself. He began to choose roles that reflected not only his appearance, but also his inner depth. Each film became a challenge, each scene an opportunity to show his true self. And this brought even greater success. Critics and viewers began to feel his sincerity and courage. During this time, he also took a bold step into producing. Brad began investing in projects that, at first glance, might have seemed risky, but which were in line with his vision of the art. It was a transformation, from an actor who played, to someone who shaped stories and influenced the film industry. This period became a symbol of a global breakthrough. He not only reached the pinnacle of fame, but also learned to use scandals and criticism as fuel for creativity. He learned to combine talent, charisma, and strategic thinking, proving that a real star is not just someone everyone sees on the screen, but someone who is able to influence the world around him. And it was then that the world first saw that Brad Pitt was not just an actor. He was a symbol of courage, risk-taking, and the inner strength that allows you to turn any crisis into a new opportunity. Even after worldwide recognition and numerous Oscars, Brad Pitt realized that the real struggle was just beginning. Fame opened many doors, but it also brought new pressures. The pressure of expectations, criticism, close attention to every step. All this could break even the strongest person. Viewers expected big roles from him, but now his every appearance on screen was analyzed. Will he be able to surprise again? Has he lost his former brilliance? Critics often compared him to past works, and even a small mistake could become a reason for public discussion. His personal life also became public theater. Divorces, relationships, romantic intrigues. Everything instantly appeared on the covers of magazines. Cameras followed him even in his most private moments. Sometimes it seemed that there was no place where he could simply be a person, not an icon. During this period, Brad took several important steps that showed his maturity and inner strength. He began to choose roles that required depth and emotional sincerity. He refused projects that seemed superficial or commercially safe to him. It was a risk. Many colleagues and studios did not understand his choice, and the tabloids savored each refusal as a scandal. But deep down, Brad felt that if he didn't stay true to himself, all his accomplishments would be meaningless. He learned to turn criticism into fuel, doubt into motivation, and hardship into lessons. Every scene, every role was a way to prove to himself that he was still growing, that he was still brave and capable of taking risks. One of the most scandalous moments of this period was his participation in the film, where Brad refused part of his fee in favor of supporting the team and charity. It seemed like a simple step, but the tabloids hyped him up as the actor who refused money. Some colleagues criticized him, producers were surprised, but he understood the main thing. Values are more important than temporary fame or profit. At the same time, Brad began to develop his production career, creating films that were not only commercially successful, but also socially significant. This allowed him to remain active in Hollywood, influence the stories the world sees, and at the same time stay true to himself. Modern challenges have shown Brad Pitt that even after global fame, life does not become easier. Every day brought new trials, criticism, scandals, expectations, inner fears. But it was these challenges that formed his true strength. He learned to balance between the outside world and the inner world, between popularity and self-esteem, between roles on the screen and the role of a person who accepts himself. This period of life has become proof. True courage is not about being at the top, but about remaining yourself, even when the whole world is watching you and everyone is waiting for you to make a mistake. Today, Brad Pitt is not just an actor, not just a face on the covers of magazines. He is a man who has gone from a little boy from Missouri, dreaming in a dark room, to a global icon who influences the film industry and the people around him. His life is a story of struggle, courage, and constant development. He continues to choose roles that challenge him, work on production projects, support charities, and leave his mark in the world of cinema and beyond. Every scene he shoots, every film he creates, is proof that true fame is not in the number of awards, but in the ability to be yourself and create something authentic. His personal life was also a lesson. Public divorces, rumors, scandals, all this could break a person, but Brad learned to turn difficulties into inner strength. He understood that mistakes are not the end of the road, but part of the growth process. With each new project, he demonstrates that true courage is not afraid to be yourself, even when the whole world is watching. His path shows that success comes to those who are willing to take risks, put values above temporary gains, and learn from every crisis.